Diary of V. Frankenstein by Stephen J. Goscott. Foreword. Writing is often a medium to help explore concepts, perspectives, and emotions. This can be a very chaotic process of shaping and creating until the correct level of understanding is reached and the right story created. This was certainly the case for the Diary of V. Frankenstein. After a long process, I'm delighted to present the two versions of this story in one book. They are the same story, but with an interesting twist. I hope the story is fun to read and provokes some thoughts about perception and perspective. Extract 1. Dr. Victoria Frankenstein. Date 1800. It has been many years since my last entry into this, the record of my transgressions. Now I must prepare myself to be the most abhorred of beings in this world. How vain I have been, thinking to live a happy existence and believing that all would be well. What a pleasant dream I have lived, only to have it shattered by news which has brought back terrible memories, and shown that I am the cause of so much death and suffering. What a lie I have been, what liars they have been. Deep down I knew that they would not keep their promises, but who was I to deny my creatures their desires? As much as it repulsed me, I could not refuse to compensate the creatures to whom I had given life. I hoped they would learn to be noble, as they had promised. 1,000 curses on my wretched soul for not destroying that first monster. I had not the courage, and now it appears that with her mate she wishes to inflict pain on all humanity. I pledge myself now to investigate the reports that have reached me. I will atone. I cannot think straight. My thoughts and guilt threaten to drown me. I will try to record this story as best as I can, but forgive me, please. It all began because I accepted, with great difficulty, the wish of the being to whom I had given life, and I fled to the Orkney Islands of the north-east coast of Scotland to create another like her. A companion was all that she wanted. I was foolishly drawn in to her justifications and rationale, and so I made another. To me he was a poor imitation, and as distorted as she. I struggled to gaze upon them without repulsion and shame, without seeing the different proportions of limbs, and imagining the person, nay, people, it had once been. Yet to her he was what she desired, and once he breathed life, we spent several nightmarish days trying to calm and instruct him in the ways of communication and survival. I told her that her objective was to find some remote place and never seek to contact or to seek to be a part of humanity. She agreed, and I naively hoped she would keep her vows and oaths. The day they left, I wrote my last entry and found solace in the fact it was over, that the creatures were gone forever. In that entry, I tried to convey my revulsion at her use of the title Mother. I could only turn my back and in a final dismissive wave show I wanted nothing more to do with her. She was a reminder of my obsession, of how I had flouted the laws of nature to assuage my own pride. With them gone, I wrote of how I could be with my beloved Elijah and my dearest friend Henrietta Claravel, and once more be in my mother's society, never again to depart. I wanted to burn this diary because of everything else it contained. I wanted to put this far behind me, but for some unknown reason I could not bring myself to destroy these pages, to which I now add. I stood there with a fire in front of me and this book in my hand, but something within stopped me from consigning it into the flames. Instead, I wrapped it up and fastened the lock with the key that hung around my neck, and proceeded to bury the diary at the bottom of my travel box. Everything else was burned with purifying fire. I left gladly, and the further I travelled away from that place, the more the memories of what I had done faded. I soon met up with my esteemed Henrietta, and what a joy it was to be back amongst such noble company. Henrietta and I made our way from England to France, visiting Paris for a few days, and by the time I was home in Geneva, there was almost nothing left in my mind of the horrors that I had experienced and created. All of my thoughts were now focused firmly on starting my life with Elijah. How happy the following years were. Good company, the births of my 3 daughters, and the fortune to enjoy various travels. It was not all tranquil and peaceful though. and often I consciously limited my curiosity for learning and delving into the unknown. Instead, I have joyfully watched my children grow, and was at last able to take pleasure in the name Mother. My younger sisters and my daughters became women. They all pursued and learned honourable professions. I often cautioned them not to overly indulge in the pursuit of excelling beyond the normal status quo. The only true misery I experienced was having to say farewell to those I loved. First, to she who gave me life, then to Henrietta, and lastly, to the one who loved me with such grace and devotion. It was last year that Elijah departed this life. My daughters and I found much solace in each other's company. It has been difficult without him, but I hoped I would live peacefully until I too was taken from this world to meet him once more. That now seems like a dream, and I am awakened to the true reality of the horrors I have created. Only 3 days ago, I was blissfully unaware of the shock that would put me on my current path and force me to recover this diary from its hiding place. I sat down to read the newspaper, and the article on the front page made all the horrors of my past life return. The article reported on a strange and gruesome occurrence on the other side of the world, in the far northwestern parts of the American continent, in the Russian America colony. The article spoke of traders who, when they had ventured to a remote settlement for seasonal trade, discovered the population murdered. The lack of practical law enforcement in such areas has made it difficult to conduct investigations, especially with conflicts between Russian and American authorities. There had been no official reports made to the law enforcement, but one reliable source, I can only assume one of the traders, said that each victim was found with all their limbs detached, as if torn off. The writer concluded that it must have been some sort of animal, yet if that were true, there would have been signs of the animals feeding, and there were none. Having read the last part of the article, I knew nothing but my creations could have separated the limbs in that way. All I could see were their horrid faces, laughing at me. I could only conclude that this had to have been some act of hatred and malice by the creatures, and that they have broken their promises of long ago. They are wicked, fiendish, and unnatural. It would be of no surprise to me if they have grown envious of our fairer nature and appearance and decided to wreak havoc, death, and destruction upon us. If only they had come for me, I would have received their vengeance with open arms. That is why I have opened this diary once more. I will not shy away from my duty any more, and to my deepest regret, I must bring those I love into this tale. Words cannot describe the pains of my heart that this must be done, but I am old and cannot do this alone. Reason and logic force me to take this course of action, and therefore this time I write not out of a misguided duty to science and exploration, but to put on record my mistakes. For if I fail, I must trust this Herculean burden to my beloved daughter, Violet. A long journey lies ahead of me. I will go to the settlement and track down the monsters. With the improved weapons of this age, I will eradicate the scourge. I will not tell Violet my reasons, but she will follow me if I tell her I wish to explore the living world before I follow Elijah into death. I have decided to venture east, assuming the monsters went from the Orkney Islands to Scandinavia, and for whatever reasons have travelled ultimately to Russia. There is no guarantee that this was their course, but when we reach the settlement, I will know what to do next. I have told Violet of my desire to journey around the world and through Russia, and then to the American continent. She has pleaded with me not to make this journey on the account of my age. However, after much persuasion, I have convinced her that I am going, and that her company on this journey is imperative. She has agreed to come with me, to my relief and consolation. If I must, I will tell her the truth, but not until I have confirmation that the monsters live. I do not want her to worry if she does not have to, and I cannot face the guilt of confessing my mistakes to her until I must.